my old mind is getting, kind of bad. When this thing came up about Tim Bourret, and the 1,000th game was against Notre Dame that he did.
Yeah, his 1,000th radio game. He'd already worked 1,000 basketball games, but that was his 1,000th game on the air.
Okay, I'll tell you a little something about that. For a couple of years, I was doing radio. I did color at home. I could not travel because of my day job, and Tim was doing those then. And then when they decided they didn't need me, they needed Tim. I think I'm the guy he replaced. I think my last year might have been 1980 doing basketball with Jim, and Tim came in. That's what I'm thinking. But now he also did some play-by-play. He did several games of play-by-play. I thought he did a fine job, by the way.
I had forgotten when I heard an interview with him the other day that while Woody Hayes was slugging Charlie Bauman in the Gator Bowl, he and Jim Phillips were out in El Paso doing Clemson basketball. Because of contractual issues in those days, they did not allow the school radio networks to do the bowl games.
Well, we did. Now, whenever the Peach Bowl, the cold Peach Bowl. 79, okay.
Yeah.
We did it. The NCAA said that they had to let the. So Jim and I went over there, dressed kind of like you and I are dressed right now.
Oh, boy.
And they put us. We thought we were going. We had a coat and tie. We thought we were going to sit in the press box.
You sat in the auxiliary press box?
No. It wasn't even that. We sat behind the scoreboard in center field, so far back you could look behind us to the street, and when somebody punted, we had to look down like this under the scoreboard. Now, my wife went with me, and she ended up just staying in the ladies' room. It was so cold.
Right.
Last time I saw Jerry Art, by the way, he came up there, and I interviewed him at halftime, if I remember correctly. But that's the last time I got to see Jerry, who was responsible, by the way, for me getting the PA job. When somebody left, Art called me up and said, hey, you want to come start doing it? And from there, I led on to the other things I did. But, we did that. Now, I can remember when Jim would sometime be off at a bowl game, the Alaska Shootout or whatever they call it one time, Tim did the play-by-play up there.
Right.
They would do that. That was some.
Yeah, Philip Sykes, who's now the basketball contact, he's done that some too.
Yeah.
But Tim told the story about they were listening, and the producer said he hit him. He's like, what are you talking about? He hit him. He said, Woody Hayes just hit a Clemson player.
I didn't know it till the next day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I never will forget coming up the road, coming back home, and they said, I was sitting in the second story of the press box about where it happened, and didn't see it.
Yeah,
and even Keith Jackson, who was doing play-by-play for that game, didn't say a word about it. Even though it showed up clearly on his screen.
Okay, let me tell you something about that.
Woody had undercut Charlie Bauman.
Let me tell you something about that. A friend, I'm sure it still exists with his family, a friend of mine who's now passed away, a guy named Drew Pickens, was well known here in town, Pickens Brothers. You probably know Billy, his brother. Drew, one time, let me borrow a tape of that ball game. And at that thing, they came back from a break, and Parsegian, who was doing color, said, as they were coming back, his mic got hot before he thought it was, and he said, that's the GDest, and he didn't say it that way, thing I have ever seen. Now, he said that, and I've heard it on that tape myself. And, of course, they wouldn't say a word. There was no way back in that day they were going to say that. But, yeah, that tape exists somewhere about that. All right, got to move on here for a minute. Clemson baseball starting. Do you keep up with baseball much? You go to the games or anything? Yeah,
maybe 3 or 4 games a year.
Yeah,
that. Have a lot of respect for the program and Coach Leggett and Bradley Lee Croy, who was a coached at Anderson, was an assistant at Anderson for 2 years when I was at Anderson, and is a former player at Clemson, has been voted one of the top recruiters in the country, and the people that have gotten all sideways lately about what's been going on up there, I've just told them just relax, that just let the recruiting kick in, and Bradley has done a terrific job recruiting, and I think we may see some of those results this year.
We'll find out
bigger,
real soon.
stronger,
Yeah.
faster. I think there has been an attitude change with Coach Leggett. I happened to bump into him in a restaurant in Clemson a few weeks ago and spoke, and he was the first one to speak to me, which was pretty unusual. I mean, Jack's just not a not an outgoing guy.
Yeah. I never really knew Jack. I knew Bill.
I heard him interviewed. I've heard him interviewed several times. You can tell there's a difference in his voice. There's a difference in his approach, and I haven't made any
little humble pie.
Well, I haven't hid from it. I've always believed that maybe he. It's hard to hit a baseball when the bat is sawdust in your hands, and baseball. I don't think is a game that you can get fired up for and get overly. I just think over the years, one of his biggest issues has been putting a whole lot of pressure on his own team to perform.
Right,
and I think that was blatantly obvious. That dark 2 games out in Omaha a few years ago when they only had to beat South Carolina once and couldn't do it. And the Clemson players were not allowed to talk to the media, or just a few were allowed to talk to the media, and the practices were not open, or I don't remember what circumstance. But on the other side, Ray Tanner was just like, what do y'all want? What do y'all need? Yada, 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 just really loose and carefree and, all about baseball, but not stressing out.
Sometimes I think that Jack may have tried to drift back into the mode of Bill Wilhelm.
Well, I mean,
because
Coach
around
Wilhelm,
Bill,
I don't know, Coach Wilhelm. Coach Wilhelm just tell you what he thought.
Yeah,
he
he
wouldn't put any pressure on him, but he would just say,
yeah.
That play sucked, or you were bad there, or you should have done this, or you should have done that, or that was good baseball. That was great. And that was Wilhelm. Wilhelm.
I got to know him real well, and I don't know
Wilhelm
Jack.
would not sugarcoat anything. I mean,
I know it.
I never will forget post game, and it was fellas, that was just an awful GD way to lose a GD game, the GD day, and that Jeff told that guy to get GD back on that ball, and he didn't do it, and then we didn't hit the GD, and then he got through with his rant, and he looked at us and goes, "Y'all will clean that up, won't you?"
Yeah, sure. That's pretty hard for the guys with little old-fashioned tape recorders in the day back, and your little cassettes running away.
But that was Coach. Well, and Jack's just a little more, actually a lot more introverted. But but I sense a difference, and I'm anxious to see. There's been changes in the stadium. There's less foul territory, which is going to make an offensive difference. It's going to keep guys a whole lot alive, a whole lot more, simply because of construction.
Yeah.
The dugouts have been moved in. There's been some premium seats added behind home plate. The biggest story on the field is the baseball. The baseball
itself
is not wrapped quite as tight as the minor league or the major league ball, but it does have flat seams.
I thought it's not the same ball in minor leagues.
No, okay. They're trying to.
I've often wondered why
they're trying to get to that, but the ball they have been used had raised seams on it, which caused air resistance. Of course, ball wouldn't carry as good.
Blisters on pitchers.
Blisters on pitchers' fingers because of the raised seams. I've been told this ball flies, 10 to 15 feet better.
Can anybody tell me why the minor leagues and the big leagues would use a different ball? Now, when I was a boy, the American League and the National
Had
League
different
used
balls.
a different ball.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know why they would want to use a different ball. Seems like me, you'd want to use the same ball. And I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of stinking difference between the ball that the majors and the minors use.
I know me either.
I can't.
I don't see
imagine.
how. Why would you? I don't understand why you would do it.
It's not like one of these soft balls that the little league, little kids use now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm anticipating a good season for Clemson. I know the way it ended last year was just a disaster and embarrassing to the entire program. And Dan Radakovich sat down and talked to Coach Leggett and told him some things he wanted done. Some programs up there have had luck with sports psychologists and go visit other programs. I think instead of going to visit other programs, they went and visited with some major league people, some major league hitting instructors, major league pitching instructors, picked their brains a little bit, that kind of stuff. So, but I think I sense that Jack's doing all he can do to make the program successful, and I know that there's very few programs in the country that put the work in that Clemson baseball does, and hopefully just a little change in approach and attitude will turn in more positive results on the field.
And it'll help in recruiting, too.
Oh, sure.
It'll
but I mean, Bradley,
help there.
People that haven't met Bradley McCrory, he's a very personal guy. He knows that he never meets a stranger. And
he is from
Walhalla. He's Walhalla.
Right.
One of the best athletes. One of the best athletes Walhalla ever produced.
Yeah.
And has just done a heck of a job. And now I didn't know it till I heard it the other day, but he's got the title of associate head coach, and he has been coaching first base, but he's going back into the dugout this year. So,
does that mean like coach in waiting, possibly?
Could be
to go back into the dugout.
Could be, and and hopefully it will work out for him because I think he would be a superb choice, especially if they take off from here and have several great seasons, because I know how hard he works at recruiting, and it's got to pay dividends. You can't keep recruiting, and I've always said I think baseball's the hardest sport to recruit for.
Well, first of all, you got 11.3 or 11.4 scholarships for the whole team. All right.
Well, and then if you go for the guys who are projected in the first 10 rounds of the Major League Draft, you could very well sign them in November and lose them next August, and then there was one year where Clemson lost like 9 of 12 signees to the draft, and it's got to be cruel to put in all that time. You've got to kind of judge, kind of find the guys that rung below and hope you can coach them up, and that's a very difficult thing to do on just an eye test.
That is now. The football team has recruited a guy named Muse, who also is a baseball player, who expects to go in the first 4 or 5 rounds in the Major League Draft. So he won't be here. Who was the guy later played with the Braves that was out of Marietta, Georgia, or somewhere? Had a pretty good
Jeff.
Remember, he was supposed to be a
Jeff
safety.
He played at Parkview High School in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Jeff.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll find.
You're having a senior moment. You're not old enough to have a senior moment.
He left the Braves quite a while ago. So.
He's pretty well. I don't think he's in the league anymore, but he had seeming like his name was a real athletic name too.
It was.
But Tommy Bowden was hoping that
Jeff Francoeur. Jeff Francoeur.
And Bowden was hoping he was going to come in and help that defense too. A great defensive back. And so he went on, had a pretty good career.
Well, I know he's made several trips back to Clemson for games.
Yeah.
He's with the Phillies now.
Oh, he is? Okay, still there. Great.
Yeah.
Taj Boys had a workout with Detroit yesterday, and here's hoping that he can catch on with somebody, at least the number 3 guy. He's got to be able to help somebody. Now, one other thing before we close. All-American